Welcome, Jim, to Metallarium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Emissary, this new first album, The Wretched Masquerade, and more things related to the metal world. Starting with a common question: how have you been during these crazy times? We started a pandemic 2 years ago. Now a war in Europe. So who knows what happened next couple of years? Alien invasion, zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, nobody really knows what's going to happen from here. I mean, when the pandemic was happening, that felt like it was going to last forever. You know, we didn't know when there was going to ever be a time when we weren't going to have to wear masks, right? So it's it's been interesting. We haven't done a lot of touring. We'll book one show, one big show, and then a few little shows around it. Traveling expenses and fuel costs and all that. You know, it's not like the old days where you can just pile into a van and go. You know, a lot of plans have to be made in advance.
Great to know that. And I think the next question is a common one that a lot of interviews ask you: why the band delayed? Wow, more than more than 20 more than 30 years in release his first album.
So there was something that happened in the Pacific Northwest of America called grunge, and alternative rock started taking over. And when we formed this band, myself and the guitar player Tim Dolan, we call him the Mothman, he and I put this together, and we had Peter Sean Kinney, who's on bass now. He was in the band back then, and Eric Hoover on drums, who played on the record. He left shortly after the album came out. We have Tony Mullins on drums now, and we have a great second guitar player named Charlie Francipane. And when we had the old band together, we formed in the early 90s, and at that time metal was kind of on its way out, and we started kind of incorporating newer elements into the sound, and we were kind of abandoning the original intention of the sound that we wanted, and things just ended up falling apart, and we all went our own separate ways. And 25 years later, we ended up in a book called Rusted Metal. It's a history book of the Pacific Northwest music scene from 1970 to 95, and we got put in there as a band that had released demos and played in Portland, and then people started talking about this old band Emissary that was around a long time ago, and we got a message from Underground Power Records saying, if you guys do a new record, I want to put it out. I'm a fan. I've got your demos. We had no idea that we had fans all over the world just from people trading our tapes and that kind of thing. So felt like it was a good time to put it back together.
Okay, well, I think you are the last. Well, no, I think you are the last member since the band started in 1989. So you start as a drummer in the band, then change to the vocals, the lead vocals. Then so, but so why? How do you see now the transpire? The old phase, the old eras in the bands is the beginning to now change the lineup, etc., etc.
It's a much stronger band now, and we're all better musicians. I'm a better vocalist. We're better songwriters. When I started in '89, I had the band name and the lyrics, and it was my senior year of high school. I had friends coming in and out of the band, and it was just kind of a garage band. And it only lasted about a year. And then when Tim and I met in '93, we put a new band together, and I just reused the name Emissary and some of the old lyrics, and we started from scratch pretty much, and formed this band formed in '93. So there's kind of a band before the band, sort of like Iron Maiden. You see old photos of Iron Maiden, and there's all different guys that you don't recognize that weren't on the first album. Dawkins, that kind of a situation. That kind of happened with us. So the real Emissary formed in '93, and it was fun, but I think that when we revisited this material, we could hear things that we could have done better and give the world an album the way it should have been probably the first time around.
Okay, well, into this new Wretched Masquerade, I saw songs from your demo, the 1994, like The Silent Treatment, In Solitude, Crash and Burn. So what do you do? Why and well, Chemical Hatred too. So a lot of songs from your demo from 1994. So why don't you decide to bring back old songs and not just a full length with new songs?
that was the deal that we were offered from the record label. They said, if you want to record a new album, we'll put it out. And we were just going to get together maybe as a couple of reunion shows and play some of the old material. And the original plan was just to do that. So we thought, let's take that old material that was recorded okay back then, and we wanted to really update it and make it sound proper. And we did have a few new songs written, but we decided to keep the first album basically old material, and the next album that we're working on is going to be newer stuff.
Okay. Other aspect about you said about the Rusted Metal, about the book and I tried to relate with I remember the documentary for Anvil, when no one knows about Anvil. A few more, just 2 or 3 albums. I just until that moment I know Anvil just by the name and the few songs. So and that's the way, So Emissary bring back from the dead. When Rusted Metal, when you appear in the book, and the label offers you a deal to re-record the old songs to do a few songs. So for you, this kind of revival has to do to bring back Emissary.
Yeah, there's also a documentary on a band called Siren. They have a real similar story to us, and I think that there is maybe more interest in old underground bands now than there were then. So it was one of those things where we ended up in that book, and we didn't even know we were going to get in the book. And once it came out, then people started talking about, oh, Emissary, I think I've heard of that band, and people started researching us and listening to our demos online or whatever. And I think people are more interested in the band now than they were then, when there was, an alternative rock movement happening and metal wasn't very popular. So I'd say that it was a better time to release the album now than back then.
Okay. And so if you talk about this aspect, you said that in the 90s the grunge movement, the alternative movement appears, and now it's much better time to release an album. So do you think now the metal is more stronger than the 80s now?
There's more subgenres now, so it's a little bit harder to market yourself, I think, to figure out which category you are. Before, when we were writing this material, we didn't have 2022 in mind. We didn't have the new wave of traditional heavy metal in mind, because it hadn't gone away and made a comeback. Especially in America, I mean, it really died off, really, to the point where most metal bands in the 90s started playing different styles of music. Guys that were all out heavy metal guys cut their hair short and decided that they were going to play grunge or alternative or whatever. And some of the guys in this band went that route and played in cover bands and did different things. And I just kind of waited. So if I can't sing music that I love, then I don't want to sing. I'd rather not play music than play music that I don't like. And now I would say that there's more appreciation for the 80s and a lot of the underground bands. I hear more people today talk about Manila Road or Omen or Warlord, those kind of bands, than I heard about back then. Everyone overlooked a lot of those bands, like Anvil, for example. And then it takes somebody doing a documentary or putting out a book or whatever and saying, hey, there's somebody you should have been paying attention to. And then things stir up and you get a little more attention.
Okay. Well, you appear when the band starts their career in the at the end of the 80s, in 1988. So, but at that time, the new wave of British heavy metal, the thrash metal, the death metal appeared at that time with a lot of bands. Then the black metal, etc., etc. But now, as you said, there's a lot of bands now, a lot of music now releasing every day. I think per day we see 20 albums per day or more, perhaps, if we talk just albums. But if we speak about the EPs, singles, albums, I think it's more than 100 per day for one day. So for you, for you, what Wretched Masquerade bring different to all the stuff around the world? Because it's very difficult to get attention from with a lot of stuff.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that's interesting is that, again, we didn't have this resurgence in mind when we wrote the material. We were just writing authentically. We were just writing what came naturally to us. And Tim Dolan, our guitarist, he's responsible for almost all the music, and I'm responsible for the lyrics and the vocals. And we have slightly different backgrounds. So when we met, it was like, he says, two puzzle pieces from two different puzzles that fit together. Or I've said it's like a peanut butter and jelly kind of a thing, where his inspiration and my inspiration, made this thing that is the Emissary sound. And back then, there was not a lot of focus on metal, and because it went away so strongly, and came back so strongly, that's one of the reasons I think that we sort of fit in what's going on now, but we didn't write anything with the current scenes in mind. And a lot of the bands that come out today, I think, are deliberately trying to copy this section of metal or this section of metal, and we do a thing that doesn't fit exactly into one category. It's like US power metal with elements of melodic thrash, so it's not exactly thrash. So the thrashers, think it's maybe a little bit more commercial than they want, but it's maybe a little bit heavier than the classic stuff like maybe Ozzy or Dokken or something like that. So we found this interesting niche where we write.
Well, other things about the metal world. Now, well, you are appearing, you are well, Emissary bring back from the dead when in an era that the most people will prefer to listen the music with 1, 2, 3 singles. We are returning to the 40s, 50s when all the music spread just by singles and no albums. So
Right.
for you, how do you see this aspect now into the music industry? Just hearing music for singles and digital platforms and not albums anymore.
I was never an album guy. I always liked the singles anyway. So I would listen to one song until I got sick of it, and then I would listen to the next song by a band. So I think there's a lot of people that if you put an album out and you drop it all at once, you kind of waste some of the opportunity for people to listen to every single song. And now people put out an album and they release a video for this song, and then a lyric video for this, and you still got to put out content. So right now, we've released a music video for Hypochondriac, a lyric video to Ruler of Defiance. We're working on a lyric video for Chemical Hatred, a music video for Silent Treatment, just to keep people interested, because it is harder to keep people interested if you're not just releasing a song every 6 weeks, for example. But we wanted to have an album. We wanted a CD that you could buy and have it be an album. And there's 2 versions of it, as I'm sure you know. There's the regular 8-song album, and then there's a deluxe version, and there's a bonus disc of 15 of the demo tracks from the old days. So it's a lot to sink your teeth into until the next thing comes out. We just want to keep people interested, release another video, release another lyric video, and the next thing we release is probably going to be an EP. So we're thinking about doing either a 2-song single or a 3-song EP, and I'm not sure about physical format or if we're just going to release it digitally. Just kind of give people something to listen to until the next full-length album comes out. Because if you think about Metallica, a lot of people forget this. They had Kill 'Em All, then they had 3 EPs before Ride the Lightning. They had the Jump in the Fire EP, they had the Whiplash EP, and then they had Creeping Death. So they were still releasing small bits of music until the next full-length album came out, and a lot of bands do that, while we're waiting for a full-length album to be released, they release some smaller things, maybe just a couple songs here or there.
Okay, okay. Well, as I told you, you are the last members from Emissary since the beginning to now. So perhaps do you consider as the gatekeeper, the gatekeeper from the sound from Emissary, perhaps for the next EP, for the next album? Or how could you imagine how could you imagine the Emissary and the next music you produce now?
Well, since we are writing new material now with 25 more years under our belt of different things that we've heard, we're going to incorporate some things that maybe we wouldn't have incorporated back then. Back when we were first writing it, we had only listened to music up till the 90s, and now we've listened to another couple decades of music. So I think it's still going to stay pretty much the same, but you might hear some little things in there that that we wouldn't have done on the first album. And again, Metallica is a great example, because if they put out Kill 'Em All and everybody says that's the sound, that's what Metallica sounds like, if the next song they released was Escape or For Whom the Bell Tolls, people would say that doesn't sound like Metallica, because it doesn't sound like what would have been on the first album. You have to have enough things on your second album that remind you of the first album, but with some new ideas mixed in. And we're conscious of that we need to keep the original intention and have it sound like what people think of as the Emissary sound, and we can sprinkle in a few new ideas as well.
Okay. Well, as I said, talking about other aspects especially in general in music and metal rock scene. So, as well, a couple weeks ago, I think a month ago, on Metalarium with all the stuff, we spoke about the artificial intelligence in our podcast, talking about this aspect. As you can see now in social media, there appear software called that recreates images, just put in these little descriptions or specific words, and this software create art so about these words. And as you can see now, the music are a lot of involved with the technology now, with the drum machine, bass machine, guitar machine, even the voice part has a lot of editing into the studio, etc. So how do you see now the music and completely are a lot involved with the artificial intelligence doing their job for the artists, for the bass players, drummers, etc.
We used a little bit of that technology on our album. There's things like pitch correction with the vocals. If you sing a little bit out of tune, you can move it, or maybe tighten up the drums, quantize things so it sounds tighter. I think that you got to use that stuff sparingly. If you were to just feed into a computer all the aspects of that you like about metal from like a spreadsheet or something, and then it spit out something that was supposed to be perfect for your taste, I don't think that there would be enough soul in it. Like there wouldn't be enough human element. I'm pretty surprised at these art programs. Like you were saying, you can put descriptions in and tell it to spit something back out that's exactly what you imagined. And I think if in doing that, people will probably get sick of that after a while. I mean, already people are starting to get sick of the sound of auto-tune on vocals, where they've gone in and corrected it so much that everything is super perfect, and you kind of wash all of the grit out of it. You make it too clean, and you got to be conscious of not going too far in that direction.
Okay, well, we're a bit close to this interview, Jim, and for that, what are the future plans that the band has for the Wretched Masquerade? Perhaps a US tour, European tour, or who knows? Who knows? The next couple years, a Latin American tour. Who knows?
Yeah, we'd love that. We'd love to go overseas. We had no idea going back into this, whatever it was last year, that there was such a strong heavy metal scene worldwide. We're Americans, and we just thought about America and thought about our neighborhood, and to find out that we have fans in countries where English isn't even their first language. We have more fans, say, in Italy than we do in England, which is odd to me, that you'd think that more people would like us in England because they speak English there. It's really interesting to look at the YouTube metrics and see how many people in different countries are clicking on our videos and all of that. So knowing that there's a big Latin American scene for festivals, and Germany has amazing festivals, we'd love to do that. This last year, we only played in America, and we played with Stephen Piercy of Rat. We played with Riot and Nasty Savage and Slough-Fag and Tesla, and we played some pretty amazing shows in the States, and we definitely are going to be doing more of that next year. And I think we're looking toward possibly seeing where we can go overseas with what we're doing, and especially with the next album, really focus on trying to get over and seeing folks over in Peru and Mexico. And you're in Peru, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have an amazing scene. I see the photos and the videos from the festivals over there, and bands like us go over there and play to a sea of people that are just, they're hardcore headbangers. They've got their fists up, they're singing every lyric, and
Mexico,
they love it. And we really want to be a part of that. I really like the culture of heavy metal. I think of it as a worldwide movement that is not really, it's kind of timeless and placeless. It sort of exists in its own reality, and no matter where you go, everybody kind of speaks the same language, if that makes any sense. You can go to a place where you don't really speak the same language, but everybody gets the same feeling when they hear a really good heavy metal riff.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Well, Jim, the sad times arrive at this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one like me doing this one. Congratulations for this first album. I hope next album's coming in a few years, perhaps next year, who knows? Perhaps you want to add something to your new Latin American fans and Metallerium followers?
Yeah, just find us online at the Original Emissary. There's a few other bands that have the same name, so if you look up the Original Emissary, we're on Facebook, Instagram. We have all of that, YouTube, and I'm starting to get a little bit into TikTok and some of that. Just trying to spread the word as much as possible, and get the music out to as many people as possible. And we definitely love our fan base worldwide, and I definitely thank you for taking the time and talking to me and talking about Emissary.